Alright, chat, welcome back to more Warhammer! Last time we watched part 1 and we learned about, I believe the human factions, right? My favorite faction from that was Sister of Battle. I love hot nuns. I love nuns. They're really cool and badass. So that's my favorite faction from that. I'm hoping to learn maybe about Purple Nurgle today. I think I heard him mention God of Chaos last video, so... Wait, no, he's not the God of Chaos. Wait, he's the God of Filth or something, right? Nurgle is the God of Rot. Oh, the God of Rot. Oh, shit. That's why everyone compares me to him, because I keep rotting. Okay, well, I'm excited to learn about Purple Nurgle. Okay, I need to know who am I being compared to? And I want to know everything about him. But we might just get a quick overview in this video, though. But yeah, let's see. I'm not sure what to expect, but yeah, we get started now.
Hey all, this is part 2 in a 2-part series on the Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man.
Yeah, we saw part 1.
In the description, and I highly recommend you watch that.
It was really fun. I think I laughed a lot.
If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again. But nevertheless, we also got demons and shit.
Yeah, demons!
What?
Like hard.
What?
Nick.
So, as I've mentioned many times before, we've discussed the
Holy
warp,
shit,
the
I forgot he doesn't have
immaterium,
legs.
The hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These
so there's
are
4
the
gods that
4
live in it?
major chaos gods. And if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about
I see
each and
him!
every single
The
one
Purple
of these chaos
Nurgle, my
gods.
goat!
First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest. Khorne is your classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts,
Yep, sounds
death.
like
You've heard
Satan
the
and me.
term
Yeah.
Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull.
Oh
throne.
yeah, I heard
That's
those terms all the
Khorne.
time.
The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from, so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death.
Damn.
That is Khorne. Very
You think he
simple
needs
to understand.
therapy?
Next up, you have
The god.
Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change.
Tzeentch.
However, the god of change, it's permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be
his design looks pretty cool.
of the universe.
He looks like he has like multiple mouths. Like,
scheming and doing
see
his
the
best
fangs?
to cause as much little bullshit as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything
He's
that
scheming.
makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is all foretold and also changeable. It is set in stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Tzeentch a question.
So he's like
That
a meat
question
man?
leads to 3 more questions. And those
I don't know, that's what
questions
Chad said.
lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even
this is
asking
fan
the
art, I
questions,
see.
or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horseshit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he is complexity.
I really like the way he did that voice there.
Unknowable. And that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot. I don't know.
Oh,
why.
he's a bird
Next
watcher.
Up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle.
Nurgle!
He loves you for
Oh,
who you
Nurgle.
are.
I was saying
Probably not.
Nurgle.
He will murder you just
Nurgle.
the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence.
Yeah, my goat!
He
My
is
goat!
the end of everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment,
They hate each
Nurgle
other.
represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and
Oh,
pestilence
damn.
and
I'm not about
large
death.
bloat and pus and organs
Ew.
and people just being sedentary, sloth.
Yo,
He
this
has
is
the idea
brutal.
that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing is certain besides decay and death. All of us will end
Damn.
up the same way.
That's a grim way to see the
broken down
world. But I
through
guess
just
kind of
sheer,
true.
never-ending decomposition. So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot, and we all die.
I mean, he's not wrong.
That's Nurgle.
But
And
that's
he's
quite
got
the
a
way to
general
say
theme
it.
of course, pestilence and
Rock
different kinds of
consumes.
diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chonk. Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slaanesh, also known as the Prince of
Whoa,
Pleasure.
is she
or the god
naked?
of unspeakable excess. Slaanesh is generally referred to with sex.
They said
but
prince.
It's not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slaanesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11, but more like 17. See, we'll discuss Slaanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up. But
I think I have a new favorite god.
It's or whatever.
She has both? Oh, okay.
Just the excess of emotions.
Damn.
And therefore, sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture.
Pain and torture,
Lots of pain,
okay.
torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs. Lots of drugs.
Oh, damn.
So
Okay, she likes her drugs.
On everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness, extremes in pain and sadism and masochism. And of course, that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff.
Yeah,
and that is generally
I
the
don't think I'll
theme we
goon
go for
over
from the physical side,
Slash.
but it really embodies everything, mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot.
They're kind of scaring me now.
Like
I'm freaked out.
Or whips, or any kind of BDSM style gear, because it is unspeakable excess. The Prince of
I like that they have a
everything
theme.
in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That is Slaanesh in a nutshell. A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes.
I'm not saying that. I feel like I'm not saying the name right.
Dark Eldar later in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you want to. Now, you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right? Well, the thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the immaterium, so you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psyker.
That's true.
Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally prefer. However, and this might seem strange, chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest.
Oh, like necessary evil. Oh, that's a really nice take on it. It makes it a little more like...
Khorne isn't about.
It makes it a lot more dynamic, like gray.
Khorne is about straight up mono e mono, you versus me. Get in the ring. We're gonna murder each other hard right now.
Yeah.
It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving schemer, but he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change, there's change for your predicament.
Oh,
there's change for
that's
your problem.
nice.
The hope of the
I
galaxy,
really like this.
the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want, the changer of ways. That is Tzeentch. And of course, Tzeentch and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality. An ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end.
I like
fear
that
of the unknown,
Bricky
fear
just
of
sits in
change
the
is
pot.
not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die.
This still sounds like it's like a little bit scary still. Kind of.
Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness. Slaanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, you know, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else, like food.
I don't know. I just wasn't expecting that, chat.
And, air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling.
All gods
all
in
of that is
40k
also
are blight
represented
on
with
existence?
Slaanesh. So
Really? Wow.
you have to ask, why are they always represented as super evil skulls and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody? I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So
that
cool.
looks so cool.
So combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells.
Slaanesh represents
frail,
addiction.
But they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger.
You've
got
have
giant
that.
demons and smaller
If
demons.
YouTube shorts.
Hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow. Khorne is super scary in melee. You've got Tzeentch, who are far more into psychers and spellcasting, and then Slaanesh,
I like the color
who's
palette
all
of that
melee, really, really, really fast but squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee and pain damage, of course. So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every single faction, with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
The Chaos Asteries.
The Horse and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater is it greater demons? They're demon Primarchs.
Damn, they leveled up.
Gigantic, horrifying man.
They're chaotic star troopers.
Pretty awesome, if I'm gonna be honest. They look really, really cool. But them and their associated legions they
Damn.
are a part of are all
Look at all
going
them
out there
skulls.
and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But you've got
I feel like I die in this universe. Everything seems brutal and cruel
These
and
people,
violent.
They are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture.
Holy
and
crap.
I think Pilgrim is a demon Primarch right now, and oh god,
They're faded in a
terrified
hole.
to see what that man looks like. At least on the tabletop, because the Emperor's children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists.
The Emperor's children are the best Chaos Marines?
They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve Chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and are a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism.
Well.
They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the
Wow,
World
these guys
Eaters
are
with
horrible.
Primarch Angron,
They're
still
evil.
alive, also excited to see. Angron, if you think you've known an angry person,
I
Angron
really like
is
the design of this
angriest
guy.
son of a bitch you will ever know. Angron removed parts of his brain
name is
that
literally
didn't make him
angry.
angry, so he could be angrier. Angron, fucker's mad. You've
Holy
got the Death
crap,
Star with
that guy's
Primarch
metal.
Mortarion. They actually have their own special codex and their own major army on the tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models, and look at him.
Whoa.
Look at him.
Wow, that
It's
looks
so
really
cool.
cool.
Looking. Of course,
Wait, is this like a
Nurgle
real model or
based,
drawing? I can't
obviously.
tell.
So
Is this
very
like
slow but very tanky.
this
You've
real?
got the Word
Like a
Bearers with
physical
Primarch
3D model?
Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At
Damn,
least
that's
I
so
blame them
cool.
for it.
That's
They're
really
little assholes.
cool.
You got
That's
the
a
Black
cool
Legion
ass
with
model.
Primarch Horus. Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius
Why did
Omegon.
Bricky just bully that poor
Chaos.
guy?
I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand
The poor
Sons
guy
with
say as
Primarch
everyone's
Magnus
evil
the
and
Nerd.
cruel in this
The
universe.
Harlequins also have their own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks
Holy
super cool,
shoot.
as you can tell, and they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat, but overall, with all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Suns, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here? This is a really good way to describe.
Oh, I like
the
Warhammer
Chaos
quotes.
Space
They're very
Marines.
cool.
What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury.
Damn, this whole universe is all about aura. No kindness.
You can see chaos.
Yeah, just all aura.
We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but freed from the shackles of ignorance. We are them, grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more. As
Holy
hardcore as that quote is,
damn,
the
that goes
saddest
hard.
part is the mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come
The warp
back
is kind of like a
at some
womb in
point.
a way.
Every demon you banish will return at some point. Chaos
I think.
is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow,
I love the warp womb.
the resources to do so, the requirements to do so are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary. So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Pretty scary, this video. The Eldar.
So let's talk about the Eldar,
Xenos?
or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized
Whoa.
and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were, as well, responsible for the creation of Slanesh, the newest demon god.
Oh.
How'd they do that?
How did they make that? Yeah.
Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient, millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain
Space
or
elves.
feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so
They're winning the
comfortable.
war.
And that comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery! When everything
What?
you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like
They had it too
feeling,
good.
happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible.
The elf
It
legs
would
are
get to the
distracting
point
me.
that made Sander Cohen in Bioshock look sane. All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved,
These
and more
space
violent
elves
paths as time went
are
on.
not having a
However,
good time.
Some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the craft world Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called craft worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main
I like that there are people
and
who
so
left
they would
that
segment
like
themselves
life.
on these giant craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space.
That's so
They even had
cool.
this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the
Warhammer,
Imperium?
like,
Eldar
art
something
is
way
sick.
safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there are also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it bloated until Slaanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, well, thought processes, I suppose, all of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls
Into
as well,
the warp.
into the warp. All this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom. Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population.
Wait, so she was literally just
Brilliant.
born from thoughts, dude.
Had
Just
their
so much
souls
thoughts
ripped
made
from their
that.
bodies and their
That's so cool.
actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them
Damn.
got fucked up. It was so bad
Thoughts
that it
make
literally
thoughts.
ripped a warp hole
That's how the warp
into
works,
the fabric of
whoa.
the materium called the Eye of Terror.
That's really
literally
cool,
this,
wow,
like,
okay. I
quasi
like that concept a
horrifying
lot.
Gateway portal
I like the
from
warp.
the materium and the immaterium.
Even though it
right
scares
next
me.
to Cadia.
Pretty cool. From afar.
And it is horrifying.
Not to live in, but
So
to look
this
at.
Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar,
Tuning gone
slaughtered
bad.
the entire population except
Holy
for a
shit.
couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy craft,
Yeah,
that
my
birth
goat.
of Slaanesh only affected the ones in the
Goat
center.
Zuvness.
So these craft world Eldar
got
were
away
able
from it.
to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, craft world or not. What about those people in the web? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well. Since the time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done.
But these space elves made this like,
Every
yeah, they
twisted
made this
strand
hell
of
for
fate
themselves.
And casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds. A conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny. And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The
Sorry.
first playable race
Wait.
we have for the Eldar.
Holy crap!
I'm
I'm sorry.
And living in those craft world starship I mentioned earlier. And each
I
of them
feel
have
a
their
little
own
bad
kind
for
of
the
craft
elves a
world
little bit. I don't know
space
why to
and
say
region.
so.
Each
Like,
craft
they
world
had it
is
all.
in itself
And
its
then-
own special
and then they
kind
went to
of
hell.
route. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion.
I
and
like how this world
trickery
was kind
on
of
a
balanced.
whole
Like, you know, if
galactic
you're like
scale.
super strong
They
and
fight
fast, you know,
weird,
you'll be
they think
weak.
weirder, and
But,
Eldar
you know,
in their own right.
There's other
really
creatures
rely
that are
on
like
their
slow and
species
like
alive.
yeah,
They
that
need
that
to think
you know
about
what I mean.
deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population. However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people, and as they continually, you know, reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slaanesh every time someone dies, but they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they
little bit of
don't
hope.
make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced
Do you guys think I can
weaponry.
fix
They also call
Slaanesh?
humans Monkai, which
I can
mentioned
fix
earlier.
her.
That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world.
What?
Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because you can't,
Oh.
in your game, call people monkeys. On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky.
Okay, well,
generally pretty squishy.
they
hit
have a
like
slur for
trucks
humanity.
And move at Mach 5. Fast.
I wasn't
hit
guessing
hard,
that anymore.
Die fast. Exactly how it sounds.
You
They've been good
cannot
for a very
fix their-
long
okay,
time,
okay.
too. We bring only death and leave only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand. Eldar.
Damn!
Sorry. Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
On today's episode of How Fucked Up is Fucked Up.
Dark Eldar.
That's fucked up.
So those people I mentioned in the
Does
web
it get more
wave,
fucked up?
super deranged.
It's already
folks,
pretty
the
fucked.
depraved people of the Eldar. In the webway, they didn't quite get a hold onto them. So Slaanesh like has them, but it has them on like by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slaanesh, but they found out they can stave her off by doing Slaanesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far
Holy shit.
the
They cracked the
worst,
code.
most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k.
Really?
These are
'Cause I've already heard
entirely
pretty, like,
people
violent
whose sole
things.
purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM. They
Damn!
definitely have a lot more spiky
That's
bits, and they have a
brutal.
lot more of that kind of leathery black
That's
look
fucked
to them.
up!
But let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond, and that's it. Not the worst way to go. You are invaded by Chaos Marines or something.
Yeah, not
you take
bad.
a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and you get cut in half. Painful, but not the worst.
Okay.
The orcs arrive. They beat you to death.
That's
Hurts,
crazy.
but, you know, whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive. Pretty rough. The Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I
Yeah,
apologize.
they'll kill you in
pray
brutal
you
ways,
die.
but it's not that bad.
Don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them. They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based like stimuli drugs directly into your nervous system. They will slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will fillet you and just pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by
what is
one.
wrong
They
with
will
these
remove your
bitches?
appendages
What?
and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R word. It rhymes with grape. your entire family in front of you and
Oh
do the
my
exact same thing
God!
to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be contorted, crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy. A fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV stand, or perhaps a wonderful hat. While you
So
are,
you
of
better
course,
hope
still
something
alive
else invades
and
your
breathing.
planet. That's what
And
I'm
you will
hearing.
become a moaning, fleshy trophy.
Yeah, I think I want to
for
become just like a
eternity.
bunch of atoms. I want to be
And
shot
that is
into
what
atoms.
happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the
Damn!
most depraved, most
These guys are
horrifying
evil,
race in
dude.
all
They're
40K.
fucked.
They look the part, and they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this, because if they
Damn.
don't, Slaaneish's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away.
Okay.
So long as they keep doing
Survival, I
this, Slaanesh is
guess.
like, you're doing good, man. You're doing solid. You keep that shit up, you elf-eared bastards. That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari. They are horrible. On the tabletop,
Yeah, that's
they're
pretty fucked.
actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar, but they hit generally even harder. Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage.
If
get
they
away kind of
evade
stuff.
your
That's
planet,
mostly Dark
chat,
Eldar.
is the
Look up the
technique to
definition
end
of
your
Grim
life
Dark in
before
the
they
dictionary.
take
You'll
you?
find a picture of the
That
Dark
might just
Eldar.
be the meta.
And Sev from Republic Commando. A quote from Mr. Vecht. We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are
Damn.
plentiful indeed.
Well,
Dark Eldar.
what lovely people.
Some of the
What
Harlequins.
kind people.
Clowns.
That's official protocol in the lore?
The Harlequins are a bizarre race.
Whoa, I actually
They're
like the designs a
demonic
lot.
Clown performers.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like
They're
the
a
I like
weird
the
mix
circus
of
clown
Sander Cohen
theme.
from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft World.
Well,
or
I
any
like
weird Drukhari
this-
people.
I like
There's
this
a
theme.
thing called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar
Those
webway,
pants are distracting
and also
me.
guarded by their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god. And these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar
Hey,
clowns.
who's-
Okay, so
who's
imagine
called
if
the
there's
laughing
an
god?
Eldar
I'm the laughing
these
god.
depraved individuals would find funny, and this is the god of that. It's a horror clown. These are
Oh.
gods of horror for
Okay.
us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very bizarre and difficult
Stop!
to describe.
Oh,
They've
no.
escaped the ruinous powers of Slaanesh somehow.
Damn, they're evil, but it's
their
just
main
like
thing is guarding
Shaq
that
keeps
black
comparing my
library, and the
laugh to a
Harlequins
clown
just-
nose, and I can't take it
They're
seriously.
demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're
Damn,
demon
I like their
clowns, and
aesthetic a lot though.
They're demon clowns.
Demon
I'm not
clowns.
Sure. I got
All
a quote.
right.
It is too easy
Yay,
for Eldar
quotes.
to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos. For Slaanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar.
Damn,
And in
okay.
the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty
For
and
fun?
generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality
So we kill
are
for fun.
virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum. They're very strange. The Harlequins, Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling
Yeah.
their civilization to horrifying murder.
Oh,
and
they kill
also
for art,
crimes.
the art
They're
is
all over
killing,
the place,
okay.
But honestly, they
get it,
represent
I get
quite
it.
well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slaanesh murdering everyone bit. So, yeah, Eldar. Now, bugs.
Ma, they following me, Ma.
Bugs!
Following me.
Hell yeah.
These
I
are
hate
bugs.
bugs, they scare me.
The Tyranids. Now, you want to talk
The
something a little more
Tyranids?
fun, a little more simple than all this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man. Like, kind of Space Marine-y. Those Marines, huh? They look a little bit Space Marine-y to me. Maybe. I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are
the
a
bugs are not
infestation
evil.
of unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms that are basically absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all 40K.
All right, I'll take it.
To do is eat shit. They want to nom the entire galaxy. They hangry.
They're just
and
eating.
food.
Okay,
Also,
it's not
the
personal.
Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the warp. In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp.
You know,
they have a thing
sometimes you just gotta
called the
eat.
shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp, because you need that for interstellar travel. So with people unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them
despite them
their
not they're actually, not that
evil
compared to everything else.
Monsters. They come in so many varieties too, all based on what is important.
That's actually really cool that this is like a thing.
Scouting and having little dudes eat people up, to the Hormigons, Termagants, and Gene
They
Stealers,
are like ants.
all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets.
Holy shit.
And even something as crazy
they have a battle
as
bug.
Hierophant Biotype.
Whoa, that looks sick.
Forms and sizes
a Biotitan.
They are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms.
Yeah, I think it'll still be scary to be murdered by these big-ass bugs.
How they handle all of their genetic material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is? We might be surrounded. There have been like around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets, and they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy have had different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying, because as far as we know, we could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant
I think this universe is cooked. Maybe the bugs should eat everything.
I mean, as cool as there are some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye, you can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them. As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you. They want to eat you and absorb
I like the simplicity of it.
They're simple bugs. If you want something a little bit more complex, talk Gene Stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want. I get around faster
Gene
than walking,
Stealer cults?
and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene Stealer cults are a special brand
Where does he get these quotes
that can
from?
slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society. And by infecting them, they can rise up to where they all pray and believe in these regular humans, pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords, and I think they're called patriarchs, all can turn an entire world all based into Gene Stealers. And these are called Gene Stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants to the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit.
Whoa!
Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides...
They're like high-tech zombies a little bit, right?
They're up there, though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole. There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineered monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct.
I think everything in this world is just scary.
We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid
But it's
race.
cool from afar.
But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids, they're cool. But are they as cool as the orcs?
Every screen's gone.
The orcs!
That means I'm super fast.
Orcs, 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 orcs. I fucking love orcs. So, yes, the green monsters, the green tide, the greenskins. These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40k. The orcs are as exactly they have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them. The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other. Orcs are so cool. Orcs don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy because he's the biggest orc.
They're all farming.
Big orc knows best. You win through the power of imagination.
I like them already.
Throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does
I feel like they would live in Florida.
Defies all logic. As an orc, you're enjoying life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life is
they're just living.
to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent, which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight. Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss, the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs. And then you can't fight because orc dead. And orc dead can't fight because the orc dead. Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on, and it works again. Does it have gas?
What?
Probably not. But
I fucking love them.
The power of imagination. They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You want to know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame.
Well, these guys are lit.
Orcs, and they were much larger and scarier.
I want to hang out with these guys.
Now they're just orcs.
From afar.
Big,
I don't want to be murdered and killed, but
they're pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids.
They are pretty funny.
Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other, so it's not too bad of an issue. Orcs are entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works. Orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a wa is just war in orc, they murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. They're
having a great time. I think they live the best life.
They're a coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to
What?
RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines,
I like the orcs because they seem very happy.
because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained. Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6, they get to make another shot with anything, from the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher. It doesn't matter. Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim. One of their medics, if you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are
Green
going to
gamble, baby!
crush people. And if you don't, you lose.
I love
That's what
gambling.
you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip, which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because
You don't know what's gonna happen.
It's just a roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're
All
gonna
in
have
on
fun
green.
and you want to be stupid and you want to be silly, you're gonna play some damn orcs. But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons. The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again.
Yeah,
have
they
a
look
much
scary.
more
Can we go
fleshed
back to
out
the
lore than
orcs?
before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see.
Damn, they look like mecha skeletons.
Eldar, Krork, Orc,
They're
Necron,
spooky.
Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy. And they found this group.
They had
They're
big
called
dreams.
The Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft, right? These Old Ones were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went to them and said, please, show us your ways. And the Old Ones said, piss off. Not really, they were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons.
Damn.
The Necrons, of course, took this very well and waged war with them. Kind of under this
Yep, as
united
you would.
banner.
As
the
you
Necrons
would.
in different dynasties didn't really like each other. But under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite
That's
his
such a
race
cool title,
was
the
to do this
Silent
giant
King.
war with the Old Ones out of spite for them
Yes,
keeping
fuck the Old Ones.
secret of
Let's-
immortality to them. This was known as
They're
the
gatekeeping.
War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage
Oh, that's a cool
war.
title,
Because
War in
during
Heaven.
This War in Heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones?
Oh,
the
they're making an
Catan.
alliance.
The Catan said yes, and in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had been a horrendous trap, and the Necrons were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk
Damn!
of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron tier and turned them all into unwilling robotic slaves.
Holy
just
shit.
to serve their will. And then, with their newfounded Necron army,
that's pretty
they
brutal.
pointed their guns at the Old Ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these old ones. The old ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari, and
the old ones just don't exist anymore then?
The horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the old ones were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed.
Let that be a lesson, chat. Don't gatekeep.
However, during all this, the Catan so just infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences, doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters. And this revolt was
that's so cool.
As the entire Necron army was surged.
He waited for the right time.
Destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them. Because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved,
they turned the tables.
They realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Orcs. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back and they see all these primitive races on their lawns and they think, get the fuck off of it. The Necrons are back, super advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs. Now, at tabletop, they're a lot like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots.
That's really cool.
When they die,
that's really cool.
Right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill. Tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with. It's pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote from a wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs,
they use their
I was
captors like Pokemon balls, dude.
Slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trazen the Infinite especially, a little dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race, let's talk the Tau.
Oh, we're on the last one? That was my fast!
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood. However, a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world that is, some Imperial
he had anime girl legs.
Were going around to different areas. And
sorry, that was very important for me to point out.
Blue people smacking each other with sticks and stones. And they thought, nah, dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit, and they bailed. Then this giant warp storm occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire. And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns. And they are here to ruin your day for the greater good. That is generally the Tau Empire. They have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group. All species can go underneath the banner of the greater good. The greater good is their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is generally the Tau.
Wow.
And if you're kind of wondering like what their main
the powerful quote.
is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons of missile pods and heavy rail rifles and rail guns and burst cannons.
Holy
and
shit, these
ionic
guys are
accelerators and
badass.
void shields and
Badass
all this
mechas,
stuff.
dude.
And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil. This doesn't sound very grim, dark Warhammer.
Yeah.
And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grim, dark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day, because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer,
the evil
don't really
shit.
like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of hate, and a lot of that
Really?
hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40k universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic.
Oh, this is the
level
youngest
Imperium
race.
has. They don't have
They
the
just spawned
weird
in.
kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or say the Orcs do, and the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam, and while it isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's that. There's also the tabletop problem. In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time, because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting. So it's one of those things that make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such.
Yeah,
But
a lot of
this is
chats
actually
is
one of the
saying
things
it's
I
like
wanted to
hard
end
and annoying to
this
fight
video
against
with,
in play.
is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse. They grow and then they fall. You should only be playing what you think is cool. You like the look, you like the models.
I like the
If
orcs.
you're
I think they're my
tabletop,
favorite.
That is what you should be going for
So
every
far from
time.
this
It's what
video.
you think is badass, because things change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer
I wanna
has
be an
so
orc.
much going for it. Every faction has something interesting. Every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, is anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video.
Thank you
I hope
for
it
the
has been
video.
informative
That
to
was a
you. If you'd like to
wonderful,
see more
wonderful
of me,
video.
Bricky,
Holy
do it
crap, an hour went by so
twitch.tv/Bricky
fast
for
again.
my streams. You
Yeah,
have
check
my
out Bricky,
merchandise
check out
site,
Bricky.
in which I was wearing all of my merch, but underneath this, because
Oh.
I had to wear this so it wasn't black or white for the green screen, which is a little unfortunate, but it's fine. If you'd like to see merch, it is in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me on my Patreon page,
Yeah, support.
Bricky, for more videos like this, then that would also be wonderful. So Twitch, merch, Patreon, anything if you want to support, that would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm just stoked you got all the way to the end of the video.
Like,
and
comment, and
that's
subscribe,
enough for me.
guys.
So, we're going to be having some more content like this out in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and being with me through this pretty rough time. That's, I think, all I got. Also, before I go, let me leave you with my favorite Warhammer quote. He who scoffs at the power of the las gun has never ran through a field of 1,000 of them. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for making the video. Wow, that was really, really fun. Holy shit. Okay. Alright, chat. Thank you guys so much for watching that with me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Wow, I learned a lot more about Warhammer. I'm looking forward to, I want to finish part 3 so I can finish his little trilogy he has here. And then I want to watch the timeline because I'm getting, like, right now I feel like I'm getting, like, a lot of stories and learning a lot about, like, you know, like, the lore of different factions and, like, what they are and who they are. But I kind of want to see where this all, like, lines up in a timeline. So I think once we finish this series, I think I probably want to watch that one. But that was really, really enjoyable, though. Thank you, chat, so much for watching that with me. Thank you, thank you. And, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Wah!